Hey guys, it's Kiva Brooks Snapper, founder and executive director of Beautiful Butterflies Incorporated, a non-profit lupus foundation. Today we're so happy that you decided to join us, and we are going to be talking about invisible illnesses, how they affect you, can you survive with them, how can you thrive, and who it affects. So stay tuned as we bring on special guests to talk about invisible illnesses in our community.
Hi, I'm Trinity Wilson. I'm 11 years old and I attend Greensboro Day School. Some of my hobbies are dancing and cheerleading.
And we also have with us
Zaya Westbrook. I'm 19 years old. I attend Winston-Salem State University, and I'm studying exercise science to be a physical therapist.
Great. Well, as I stated, I am Kiva Brooks Snapper, founder and executive director of Beautiful Butterflies, a nonprofit lupus foundation. And one of the things that I really want to do is just educate our community on invisible illnesses. So I have two beautiful young ladies who are a part of the Beautiful Butterflies family who have joined us to just talk about their story, to encourage you, to give information, to help educate, let you know how they serve the community, and to just let you know that no matter what happens, no matter what you're challenged with in life, you can always thrive. So I'm going to start with Miss Trinity. Hi, Trinity.
Hi.
So, Trinity, you are how old?
11.
11 years old, and you go to Greensboro Day School,
Yes.
and you love to cheer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, I've seen a couple of videos. She's pretty good, y'all. So, one of the things that I know is I was diagnosed with an invisible illness back in 2003. I know as an adult how it affected me. So, can you tell us when you were diagnosed with an invisible illness and how it affected you?
I was diagnosed with an invisible illness 2 years ago in April. It affected me because I didn't expect this to happen. I didn't know what was going on at the time. So it kind of scared me a little, but then I adjusted to it and yeah.
So how has it affected you at school? Did you feel like you needed to tell anybody? Did you talk to your friends about it, or you just only talk to family members or close people to you?
I talked to close people to me, and at school I told one of my best friends. That was the first person that I told, besides my mother.
Okay, so did it affect your homework? Did it affect you taking tests, being tired? And invisible illnesses are different for everybody. So how do you feel it affected you?
I mean, it didn't really affect me with school, but it did have some challenges along the way with what people were going to talk about me, what were they going to say, what were they going to think, and what was going to happen.
So, in other words, it affected your self-esteem.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like you're currently dealing with that? How do you feel like you're getting through that every day?
I feel like I'm getting through that because I feel like more people know about it now and more people have warmed up to what I'm going through and they don't really have anything to say anymore. So I feel like I'm doing better than I was when I was first diagnosed.
Do you feel like it's stopped you in any way from living your life?
Yes.
Okay, how do you feel like it stopped you?
I'm not really allowed to do what other people I'm not really allowed to do what other people think I can do, but yeah.
So you do things to the best of your ability, but sometimes they may not understand why, or they think you can do more, so it kind of makes you uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you're working through that, right?
Yes.
And I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
So if someone your age was diagnosed with an invisible illness, what would you say to them?
I would say just believe in yourself and don't let anyone talk about you. Don't let anything get you down and just be you.
Awesome. And that's from the mouth of Miss Trinity. And Trinity was also Little Miss Beautiful Butterfly. She reigned for a year. She's still been very cooperative in the community, and we'll come back and ask her a couple of questions about that. But now I want to turn to my college student, Miss Zaye. Hi, Zaye. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
So, you are a student at what HBCU?
Winston-Salem State University.
Go Rams, huh?
Yeah, go Rams.
Sorry to hear it. I am an Eagle in CCU. So, and what are you studying currently at Winston State?
Exercise science.
And what do you plan to do with that?
I plan to be a physical therapist, hopefully to move out of state, so that way I can do it for professional.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your journey and your story. So you've been diagnosed with an invisible illness. When was that? And tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, I was diagnosed with lupus in 2013. It all started when I was playing sports and I was, just doing the regular teenage stuff, and my fingers would swell, my knees would hurt, my back would hurt, and I would just be sick, and I would have hives and all of that. And so we went to the doctor, and they just thought it was like a little seasonal allergies, but I kept having the symptoms, so we ended up being referred to Duke. So when I went to Duke, they ran tests, and they finally came back and said I had lupus. For the most, it affected how I felt, how I wanted to react to different situations. It affected my concentration in school. It also affected my schedule, my free time, all of that. It was hard to cope with at first, especially when I got diagnosed with lupus nephritis 3 years later.
Okay, so explain, because everyone doesn't know. First of all, lupus is an autoimmune disease that can affect any part of the body. Anything from every organ you can think of, so it can affect your skin, your joint, your hair, any and everything. It can affect that. And currently there is no cure for lupus. In the United States, 1.5 million people have been diagnosed, and worldwide 5 million. Here in the state of North Carolina, 45,000 people have been diagnosed with lupus. And as I stated, there is currently no cure. No two cases are identical, which makes it even harder to find a cure. And 90% of the people who have been diagnosed are women. And the age range is 15 to 44, the average age range. But as you can see, she wasn't in that range when she first got diagnosed. And not only does it affect women, but it affects more minority women. It's actually 3 times more likely to be an African American woman who's diagnosed. 1 in 250 African American women will actually be diagnosed. So that's what we're talking about when we're dealing with lupus and her diagnosis, as well as what I've been diagnosed with back in 2003 for me. So she's moving, saying she dealt with lupus, but then it kind of took a shift, and she was diagnosed with lupus nephritis. Now, can you explain to our audience what lupus nephritis is?
Okay, so lupus nephritis is basically lupus within the kidneys. So my kidneys was basically clogging up, and they couldn't really stop it at that point. So I had 2 biopsies done, one in a different year, and each time it basically said the same thing, their test, the results. And I just kept having to add more medicines and just keep going back to the doctors. I had started with infusions. Basically that was like a job, like 9 to 6 at Duke, getting medicine, just letting it just go into my body and sitting there. And
how old were you at that time?
I think I started when I was like 16, 17.
So you were missing school?
Missing school a lot. I really had to stay hard on myself in school, because I was behind at a lot of points in time. Testing was harder because I missed out on a lot of information. It's harder to receive information and understand it when you're not present in class. And a lot of that time I wasn't present because I was sick. I didn't feel good. I had doctor's appointments that would last all day.
So your parents would have to miss work as well. So then it becomes a financial struggle, because parents have to take off work, but she's going to the doctor in Duke, so that's gas as well as when you're there all day, you have to eat. And because she was dealing with everything she was dealing with, There were probably certain things at that particular time that she could not eat. I do know that in dealing with lupus and invisible illnesses, diet is an important part. There is no strict set diet. There have been many different things suggested and many different things told to do this and do that, but we do know things like sugar doesn't help. We do know things like a lot of starches, breads, corn, they aren't good for you. They can cause more inflammation. We also know red meats, beef and pork, aren't good for you as well. So if you're going to eat those things, it's better to have grass-fed, grass-finished, which you can get strictly from like a farmer's market, because it doesn't have all of the other antibiotics and things that have been poured into it. So here you are. You've had been diagnosed with lupus. Your first diagnosis, you were 14 when you were first diagnosed. So how did that affect you with peer pressure and self-esteem? Was it affecting how you looked, your thought pattern?
Lupus affected me a lot. I had bald spots. I wear my hair out in afro a lot. So people would play in my hair. They thought it was so soft. But then when I started developing the bald spots, I had to limit how much they played in my hair, who played in my hair, who knew that I had lupus. I didn't tell anyone at first. It really hit me hard. I didn't.
You wouldn't even. I was gonna say you wouldn't even. She came to support group for the first time, and it was her along with her family. Which I want you to talk about that as well, because you have younger siblings and they've seen a lot of your struggles. Yeah. So I want you to talk about how it's affected your family in a second. But she would come to support group and she wouldn't even talk. We would be sitting in a circle and everybody in the room was connected to or dealing with an invisible illness. She would not even utter the words, "I have lupus." It took her a couple of years, and finally at one of our lupus awareness luncheons, I convinced her and her mother to come before 150 people and say her name and say that she has lupus. There was a time where, and I'm extremely proud of her for even sitting here doing this with me. But there was a time where before she could even finish the sentence to say I have lupus, she would cry. She would be crying. So to see your strength and your growth to not only be able to walk in it and deal with it, but you're also at a place where you're able to help others along your journey. So talk about that. You were talking about your self-esteem, and I wanted to throw that in there.
Oh, yeah. So along with lupus, you have like symptoms. They may not be visible, but mine were visible. I also had the butterfly rash. So
what's the butterfly rash?
The butterfly rash is basically a rash that goes from here, the top of your nose, and it can spread alongside all your cheekbone. And it could spread down, up.
So it looks like butterfly wings. It's the shape of an actual butterfly. So they call it a butterfly rash.
So I started developing the dark spots of the butterfly rash, and my rash basically just went right here. And at the time, I didn't wear makeup. So it kind of like, I don't know, it stood out. And it hurt me because my friends, they would always be like, "What's that on your face? What's wrong with you? Like, what's going on?" So I would just be like, "Oh, I'm just breaking out," because I wasn't comfortable with explaining to them, "Oh, I have this, I have lupus, I'm going through these changes, this is going on with my body." So it took me, like Kiva said, it took me a couple of years to finally sit down and tell my friends, "Yes, I have lupus, and this is how it's making me different from you. This is why I can't hang out when you hang out. This is why I can't eat where you eat," and different things. It really just, to me, it held me back from enjoying my teenage life. I couldn't really play sports like I wanted to. I was really active in middle school, but when I hit high school, I couldn't really play sports because my joints were ache really bad, or I would be really tired. I would fatigue faster than all of my teammates. I wouldn't be able to perform the regular duties. I wasn't able to work a regular job when I was 17 because the doctor told me that my body could really like overwork itself and I could just really like mess up my insides. And he told me I had to limit working, and it just really like, it made me feel different. It made me feel like I wasn't capable enough to do what the normal people do, I guess. So I felt different. I would cry about it. I would wouldn't go to school sometimes because I was embarrassed. I wouldn't walk outside without makeup on because I was just like, oh, nobody can see me like this. Like, they're going to stare. They stared. Some people laughed. Some people talked about it. Some people disrespected me. And yeah, it hurt. But as I've grown to be like a more mature adult, I've learned to just take it and teach other people, like, just because I have this doesn't mean I can't do this. Just because I look like this doesn't mean we're not like two of the same people. Just because I can't do certain things when you do it doesn't mean I can't do it at all. So it's made me become a stronger person, and it steered me in like the more clear direction. It really made me become more focused about myself, my body, and my health.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely glad to see you at this point on your journey. And I know, Trinity, you had talked a little bit about the self-esteem. Have you had problems with people at school saying anything, or were you able to hide what you were dealing with?
Both. I was able to hide stuff, and some things people would be able to point out, and they'll keep asking me questions about it. Sometimes I didn't know what to say, so I just kind of stood there or I walked away. And they kept coming back because I didn't say anything. So that was their reaction. So they kept coming up to me and asking these questions. And they wouldn't stop asking them because a lot of kids are curious to know about what's going on.
So when they kept coming up to you, how did that make you feel?
It made me kind of feel sad. It made me feel like, why do you keep asking me these questions? Like, why can't you just leave me alone? Like, that's how it made me feel.
So you just ended up walking away and not really
Responding. Yeah.
Okay, which was probably the best thing at that time, because if you're not ready to talk about it and you're not ready to deal with certain things and you don't have the best response, then walking away is a good thing. So, Zaye, how did it affect your family?
I would say it affected my family because I don't want to say it separated us or just like made us fall apart, but all the attention was basically on me. Like, my brothers and my sisters, they didn't really get as much attention because it was always something I had to do. I had to go get labs. I had to go to the doctor. I had to be at the doctor all day. I would have to have a nurse come to my house and sit there for a couple of hours while I got in-home infusions. And my parents couldn't really go where they went or with them where they wanted to go. I really feel like it affected my family. It really challenged us to be strong, to stick together, to work harder with the job, mentally, physically. Doctors are not cheap. They are not cheap. And it just, when I seen a couple of the bills, I would be like, Lord. Lord.
And that's with insurance.
Yes.
Right.
Like, Lord.
Right.
It was really hard, challenging, and it's still kind of like challenging because Mom, I got an appointment I got to go to, and she's like, well, I got to work, so now I have to do it by myself. I have to switch over it just to doing stuff by myself or taking my friends. My mom can't go all the time, my dad can't go all the time, and it would sometimes hurt seeing my brother like question like, why does Zaye have to go through this, or why does Zaye like not eat this, or why is she not coming outside of her room today, or why is she being so mean and aggressive today. Like, it would hurt because I didn't want to be like that, but I couldn't control the way I felt. I couldn't control the different symptoms. I couldn't control whether or not I felt good one day and then I felt even better the next, or I felt bad the next. Like, so it took us for a little trip. Like, we had to really adjust.
And you're still adjusting now. The thing about dealing with invisible illnesses is you're constantly adjusting. It can blindside you. You can be, as she stated, you can be fine one day, and then the next day your symptoms are completely different. something you go through in one year, you may not see the next year. It may be a different type of challenge, but all still related to the invisible illness. So, and the reason why it's called, there are so many invisible illnesses that are connected, but the reason why they're called invisible illnesses is because you can't necessarily look at a person and tell what they're going through. While even with Zaye, though she had the butterfly rash, and I've had it maybe twice, but even though she had that, you still wouldn't know what's going on with her kidneys. You wouldn't know that she was dealing with lupus nephritis. She would spend days and a lot of time at Duke Hospital. You really wouldn't know the struggles that she's facing because you see a rash on her face. Some people might think she just had bad skin, but not really realize that it's an invisible illness that you can live with and you can thrive, but it's a struggle, it's a challenge, and it's not easy, especially waking up not knowing how you are going to feel. Trinity, how would you say your family has had to adjust? I know that your mom is a business owner, and she has a wonderful boutique where she has everything from clothes to blinged out t-shirts. Matter of fact, I think she may have done this one. But I know that she does different things in her business, and she has to travel back and forth or set up, or people will make appointments to come to her. So when there are things that you have going on and it prohibits her from doing her business, how have you have adjusted to that schedule with her, or her with you, or just how do you feel like it's affected your household?
I feel like it's affected my household because we have to go, maybe say we have to drop off something to another customer, or my mom has to make something, or we have to do this or something like that. I don't really think it's affected me that much because my mom's always by my side, and so yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so she's always by your side. So she's adjusting and you're adjusting, right?
Yes.
Day by day. Do you help her with her business?
Yes.
So you can make me a t-shirt, girl? Awesome. Well, yeah, so even in that, what would you say to someone who is freshly diagnosed with lupus or an invisible illness? What advice would you give? First off, let's say it's a teenager, and then to the siblings, and then to the family as a whole. What advice would you give?
To the teenagers that may be diagnosed with an invisible illness, I would just say every day is not easy. Like, every day is not a piece of cake. You're not going to get up and you're not going to want to laugh. You're not going to want to see anybody, talk to anybody. You're not going to want to take your medicine. But you have to push yourself to better yourself and keep yourself happy and healthy. And along the way, things will get better. I promise, because for me, things have gotten better. Things have gotten more stable in my life. And like I said, it's not going to be easy, but it's okay to cry, because I've cried. And like Kiva said, it took me years to say, I have lupus. So when you finally reach that point where you can say, I have lupus to a stranger you don't even know, you've grown. You've accomplished something. So it'll come. Just don't rush it. Be strong.
Trinity, if there's anything else you want to add about your story, anything you want to share, any closing remarks from you?
Okay. I feel like having an invisible illness, you just have to stay strong, and you really can't let other people get you down. You have to keep fighting. Like with me, I know a lot of people have talked to me. I know a lot of people have asked me questions constantly, but I've learned that you just have to be strong and just believe in God, and He'll work a miracle.
Oh, all right. That's awesome. Good stuff. So, and for me, as I stated, and as these young ladies have stated, the diagnosis doesn't have to define who you are. You define who you are. And while all of our stories are different, in some ways they are also very similar. Just by the different challenges that we've had, just by mean and rude people saying things to you, learning to overcome a different challenge every day, learning to love yourself despite what it looks like, despite what it feels like, despite what the doctors are saying. You have to love you. You have to know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You have to know that you're the apple of God's eye. You have to know that you have purpose, and that your assignment is to walk in that purpose and fulfill it while you are here on earth. And I think for us, none of us never imagined that we would be sitting in the places and the positions that we're in now, talking about invisible illnesses, talking about going through something so young, or being diagnosed as a teenager and dealing with self-esteem, and then getting a different report from the doctor where it seemed like it could be life-threatening because they couldn't actually pinpoint where things were starting. Or for me, actually having multiple strokes, having 3 blood clots on the brain, and being in ICU, being unconscious and in a coma, or even having to do rehab and having temporary paralysis from that stroke. But in all things, I think all 3 of us, one thing that we have in common is we know how to fight. And we know that we have a strong support system, and we have our days. We have our days where we cry. We have our days where we're tired. But our support system, they're always there to help hold our arms up and help us fight as we have to adjust to these daily challenges. So with that, you don't have to have an invisible illness. You don't have to deal with lupus to have some type of challenge in your life. Everybody has dealt with something, whether it's relational issues, whether it's work related, whether it's just learning more about yourself. If you know you're a procrastinator and you need to change that. Everybody has something that they are challenged by and that they're dealing with and that they need to work on. So as these ladies have beautifully stated, just take things day by day and work on you. Always know that there's hope regardless of what it looks like. There's always hope. And while we know that we're all survivors, we do know that we don't want to just survive, but we want to thrive in life. To survive is to live, but to thrive is to excel. And we want to excel in everything that we put our hands to. So we encourage you to enjoy life, live life to the fullest, no matter what happens, no matter what comes. You, my friend, can always thrive, and know that no matter what, there's always hope.
Thank you for joining us today.
If you would like more information or even make a donation, you can visit the website
at www.mybeautifulbutterflies.com. And remember,
There's always hope.